Last week, prosecutors wrapped up their arguments in New York Attorney General Letitia James' civil lawsuit against Donald Trump for ulent business practices of the Trump Organization. The court heard testimony from 25 witnesses over the last 6 weeks. But the testimony given at last week's hearing was one for the books. With their rambling, threatening, thoroughly political statements, Trump and his lawyers effectively turned New York City courthouse into campaign stop, turning legal hearing into political one while most of us missed it. On this week's Amicus podcast, I spoke with University of Chicago Law School professor Eric Posner. He is the author of How Antitrust Failed Workers, most recently published by Oxford University Press. His writings on the subject of political trials were quite extensive, including a 2005 Law Review article in which he detailed defining aspects of political cases, and several recent articles warning against allowing existing Trump cases to become duplicate versions. His view is that so-called insurrection clause lawsuits over Donald Trump's eligibility to remain on the ballot run the risk of similar politicization and backlash. Dahlia Lithwick There was another piece of news this week that felt like it was in your wheelhouse. The Minnesota Supreme Court blocked that state's attempt to use the insurrection clause to keep Trump off the ballot. You offered a critique of efforts in several states to use Section 3 of the 14th Amendment as a tool to remove Donald Trump from state ballots. I think, in your view, doing so ensures a seismic backlash from removing prominent former chairman of the Republican Party from ballot. You wrote that this would result in the disenfranchisement of a large portion of the electorate in your own eyes. And you are not offering a constitutional or original reading. You're making a pragmatic point, similar to the pragmatic political point you made about holding big show trials. Eric Posner, I think the problem is that a lot of people are thinking about these attempts to prosecute Trump or to keep him off the ballot through lawyering. This is understandable, of course, because these are legal proceedings and the insurrection clause argument. It is based on the Constitution. But this kind of legalistic thinking makes sense when you're talking about ordinary people or businesses subject to ordinary legal processes. But when you're talking about someone who is a former president and a frontrunner in office, as you said, you have to think about these cases pragmatically. We need to think about these from a political perspective. What will be the impact of these cases and allegations on the public now? It's tempting to talk about democracy with a capital D, and you can do that. But I am more interested in political psychology. Will these efforts backfire and help Trump? Or even if they succeed, will they cause long-term damage because half or 40% of the population feels disenfranc?